Hello. Since you're watching this, I know you're interested in learning and probably interested in learning better. In this video, I'll walk you through a simple technique I use to improve how I learn. Maybe it'll help you too. A lot of people think that experts like chess champions, concert musicians, or professional athletes are just naturally talented, that they're born with the gifts that have made them great. Sure, it helps to be tall if you want to play basketball, but that's not enough to become a pro. The psychologist Anders Ericsson has spent many years studying performance, and he's identified one key factor in developing expertise: deliberate practice. Experts work on their skills a lot, but they don't spend their time practicing what they already do well. Instead, they identify their weaknesses and train to reduce those weaknesses. In other words, they spend time on improving the areas that need the most improvement. Makes sense, right? But most folks don't train this way because it takes time and can be both frustrating and challenging. But that's how you develop expert-level skills. It's similar in learning. There are more effective ways to learn and less effective ways. What doesn't help you learn better or remember longer is redoing your coursework, like rereading a book, rewatching a course, or taking tests on information you already know well. However, like a professional athlete, you can learn better by focusing on the areas that need the most improvement. Spend the time to understand and remember concepts that you're not quite getting. I call this deliberate learning. And although it takes more time up front, it lets me make sure I understand what I'm learning and helps that information stick with me longer. In the next few minutes, I'll explain how I identify my learning weaknesses and how I work to reduce those weaknesses. As I'm learning something new, I ask myself 3 basic questions every time important information is introduced. What are the main concepts, ideas, or facts I just learned? This question forces a simple act of remembering, called recall. And answering it does a couple of things. First, it lets me make sure I was paying attention. Secondly, and this is related to strengthening memory, recall helps with what's called memory consolidation. In other words, remembering a thing helps you remember it better. Next, I ask myself, can I explain those concepts in my own words? I'll try to say out loud or in my head what I just learned. But it's important that I don't just repeat word for word what I read or watched. By putting the concepts into my own words, I'm making sure I understand them. Finally, I'll ask myself if I can relate what I learned to things I already know. For example, say I just learned about sets in Python. I can ask, how does this relate to another Python data structure I already know, like a dictionary? How are they similar, different, and when should I use which? This is an important step and helps tie concepts together. It adds meaning to what I just learned by connecting it to something I already know. In addition, building connections between memories helps make those memories last longer. This 3-question process works really well with Treehouse courses and workshops. After each video you watch, just ask yourself those 3 questions. Now, what do I do if I can't remember, explain, or connect what I learned to something I already know? Well, I've just identified a learning weakness. I didn't get it. This is a red flag for me and lets me know that I shouldn't just continue to the next chapter, video, or lesson. I need to stop, regroup, and figure this out. When I realize that I'm not understanding something I was just taught, I have several strategies that help me. First, I'll try to put what I learned into action. This works best if you're being taught a particular technique or skill. For example, if you just learned about conditional statements and were shown code for how to use them in a program, try to create similar code on your own. Play around with the program, and don't worry if you don't get it right immediately. You could also try a code challenge related to what you just learned, or try a Treehouse practice session if there's one related to the new concept. Of course, you might not be able to put what you learned into action. Maybe you really didn't get it, or there isn't a clear way to practice. In that case, my second step is to reread or rewatch what I just learned, but do it with purpose. I know I said earlier that it's not that effective to just redo courses. And it's true that just rereading or rewatching everything you learn isn't that effective. but I'm suggesting that you revisit the material while purposefully focusing on answering those 3 questions. As you rewatch the video, keep in mind what's important, how to explain it, and how it relates to what you already know. Pause the video or stop reading to give you time to think about those 3 questions and answer them. It's a good idea to take notes. Write them down, put them into a Google Doc, or use a program like Evernote or just your text editor. Finally, if you still feel that you just don't understand what you learned, or still can't answer those 3 questions, supplement what you learned with another source. There are many ways to do this. Often at Treehouse, we include more resources in the teacher's notes. You can see an example on this page below this video. Go ahead and follow those links and read those resources. Documentation is another great place to learn more. There's usually lots of documentation for a language, a new framework, or an application, and we'll often include links to those in the teacher's notes. Finally, a quick Google search often leads to some useful information, like a Stack Overflow post, Wikipedia page, or some other explanation of what you just learned. I find that having something explained in different ways and from different sources helps me understand better. So what do I do if, after all of that, I'm still confused about what I just learned? In that case, I'll seek advice from an expert or a colleague. Ask a friend, or at Treehouse, visit the community and talk to other students about what you're having trouble with. You'll often find good advice, great answers, and a lot of support in our community. If you're learning a new coding framework, you might see if there's a Slack or IRC channel available. The one thing I don't do is just give up. Learning is challenging, and learning something like computer programming, data analysis, or some other technical skill takes time. You'll rarely just get it. Sometimes you'll need to live with the slight discomfort of not totally understanding everything you learn. Often, when we're struggling the most, we're learning the most, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. I learned a long time ago that I have to be okay with not immediately being an expert. But the way I've taught myself to get better at learning is identifying what I don't understand and working on it bit by bit until I do. It takes time, and it isn't always fun, but it's always rewarding knowing you've put in the time and learned something that you thought was too complicated for you. Have fun learning.